What up, friends, foes, and audio engineers alike? Today we're going to edit a 3-part song the good old-fashioned way like God intended, with a little bit of sweat and a razor blade. I often get asked by people who are looking to get into recording on tape, what type of machine should I get as my first machine? And with the realization that a multi-track machine can be expensive in itself and the tapes associated with it even more expensive over time, I always suggest, getting a 1/4-inch half-track machine like so. These can be had at reasonable prices. They're relatively simple most of the time, and the tapes can be dirt cheap if you were buying used tapes. And thankfully, for once in my life, I'm going to keep the introduction to this video as short as possible. I already have a detailed video talking about how to edit on this multi-track machine, how to edit on this 1/4-inch machine. I'll link it below. You can watch it. It's like 45 minutes. I babble on forever and ever. Really, I just want to get straight into mixing on this machine so you guys see what it's all about. I'm really hoping by the end of the video, you see 2 things. 1, how much fun this process can be, even though it's a little stressful. And 2, how rewarding the end product is going to be. I can easily make the edits that we're going to be showing today in Audacity in less than 3 minutes, but I'm telling you, it's just going to be so much more enjoyable. I'm already yapping too much already. Let's just move this machine. I'm doing you guys a solid. Instead of doing all the video over here, I'm breaking it down, putting it on top of this board here so we can get it better on camera, which is already a pain in the ass to begin with, right? So, maybe as a reward, maybe you could email me, ask to buy some music from me, and, maybe. Okay. All right, let's just move it. Alright, so we have the tape machine set up. I got the tape right here. Before I put it on, I just want to quickly show in a diagram the editing that we're going to be doing today, because it's very easy to get lost in the sauce once you start doing all the splicing here, and I want you guys to have a visual to follow along with, so you better understand what's going on here. So the song we're going to be working on today is called Devil's Kumbaya, and it is written by our truly Tim Jones. Applause, 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 applause. And this is a behemoth of a garage rock, fuzzed out rock song, and by far the most challenging thing I've ever had to record, mix, produce, whatever you want to call it. And there's definitely, some things I wish I would have did better, but, we'll talk about that once we start doing the editing. On this diagram here, so let's get a little closer. We have part 1, part 2, part 3, and then a transition piece here. This transition piece, that was actually an afterthought that me and Tim had about how to do the transition between part 1 and part 2. Ideally, we would have recorded this when we were doing part 1. We didn't think of it. It was an afterthought. Big mistake. It would have seemed a lot more seamless, and it would have been better done if we had the forethought of doing it. But listen, this is just one of the limitations we're dealing with today, and we're going to do our best with the editing to kind of make it sound as best as possible. And at the end of the day, this is a garage rock song, so it's not meant to be perfect. It's supposed to be a little rough around the edges. Okay, so taking a closer look at this, I'm going to point out 3 things. 1, the dashed sections along each part. This is just the part that normally gets edited out. That's either the drummers counting in on the sticks, maybe someone coughs before the song starts, whatever the case is. The part that normally gets edited out of a song, that's what that's symbolizing there. Above each track, I have the relative volume of the track. These volume changes were all done during the tracking and the mixing process. For example, for part 1, the song's at normal volume, and it ends with a fade out, and that was done just by Tim letting his guitar ring out naturally and the sound decaying naturally, and I used that as, a natural fade out into the next part. And then finally, the red dashes, that is going to be our splice points for each of these parts. I'm not worrying about the start of part 1 or the end of part 3 here. That when I rip that to my computer, I'm just going to do a simple cut there. That, I don't have to do anything editing there. That's just going to be done that way. And we're going to make our first splice here after part 1 ends, where, the guitar rings out. We are going to insert this transition sound effect here. And, the splice at the end here, I'm actually going to cut it right before the dashed portion here, because I want this to be a hard cut into part 2 here. It's almost going to be like an avant-garde type of sound where the sound effect's going to be swelling, 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 and it's going to be a hard cut into part 2. I want it to be a little jarring. I want it to be, a little out there. It's going to be a little experimental. Part 2 is going to, start with that hard cut, as I said. Another natural fade out. We're going to do a splice there. And we're going to splice in. I actually drew this in the wrong spot. The fade in for part 3, once again, naturally done. We're going to splice there. And that's really going to be it. There's going to be 3 splice points with these 4 separate parts. I really don't think it's going to be that complicated, so let's just get started, baby. One last pedantic thing, even though I'm showing the diagram like this, in actuality, it's actually going to be flipped 180 degrees, right? Because when your tape is going across the tape heads, part 1 is going to be on the right side, and the transition in the part 3 is actually going to be on the left side of the tape because it's going like so and wrapping up in the take-up reel. It's honestly really not that important. Your brain kind of automatically factors that in when you start doing it. It comes intuitively. It's just something that I need to mention because, I feel like someone's probably going to be like, oh, make a snarky comment about it or something. Anyway, let's just get started once again. All right, finally we're rolling here. So this is the transition piece. Let's listen to it. It's a sound effect. That is wicked crazy. All the distortion you hear in that, it's actually from the Foley record itself. It's, the dust getting hit by the needle. As I said, garage, Alright, so we want to mark the points at which we want to do this edit here. I'm going to show a little trick here. So on this machine, there's no edit function, right? I can't press an edit button and rock the tape back and forth like I can on a proper tape machine. But if I remove this pinch roller right here, and I press play, I can do it. So, let's see if you could hear that. You could hear the sound start at a certain point. Right there. So I'm just going to cut it right there. Remember, we're monitoring off the monitor head here, the reproduce head. Going to make a cut right there. Let's put this back on. I'm going to cut it right there. Remember, I want it to be a hard cut. I want it to swell up and then do a hard cut. So we're going to do it right there. Alright, so now we should have 2 points that we want to cut. I have a brand new razor blade here. Alright, so I got the blue mark lined up. It's probably hard to see on camera. We are going to do a 90-degree cut here. 90 degrees. Alright, so we could roll up this now. See, I'm already getting confused because the tape is backwards. I said it was going to be intuitive, but let's think about this. I just cut the end, so the end is actually over here. We need to roll this piece back up. It could be a little confusing, as you can see. So let's put this on. We're going to thread tape again. So I actually think I'm going to pick a different point than I originally chose. Let's do this in slow motion. I'm going to half the speed here. Yeah, so I'm actually off. So I think I'm going to do it right there. Let's see. Right there. I'm going to cut it right there. These are like really rough cuts I'm doing here, obviously. For the type of editing I'm doing, it's really not that crucial. You know, this fade out to fade in. I'm probably going to be using a noise gate while I do my final master that will, take care of these splice points a little bit, and we won't have to worry about it too much. All right, so let's make a cut. Let's stop thinking about it too much. This is garage after all, baby. Let's just cut it. I know right now I'm probably giving you tape heads out there a little bit of a heart attack, and for this one, I am going to do a 45-degree cut instead of a 90-degree cut. All right, let's save this. So now this is the transition piece on here. We're going to do a little splicing action here. This 1/4-inch tape is such a pain in the ass to splice in comparison to the, a wider 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch tape. It never wants to stay inside the splice block. It moves all over. You see right here I have 2 faders holding it down just to help me out a bit. I know it's probably giving you some of you out there a heart attack, but it just makes it a little easier. And then it's even harder to put the tape on this little piece of 1/4-inch tape. Like I don't like how that went on. We're gonna redo that. All right. Spliced. This is the end of the tape that is not part of the rest of the song, so I'm not too concerned about it. Let's just get this baby threaded back on. I think right there I'm going to make the splice, right there. Not going to think about it too much. Simple as that. Alright, so remember I'm going to do a 45-degree cut here. Where did it go? Right here. Alright, so remember, the end of part 1's on this side, right? On the take-up wheel. So I gotta remember that. I'm gonna take this here, temporarily put it right there. Alright, so now we're gonna splice on the transition piece here. Make sure everything's good to go. Alright, get my handy dandy tape. My tape for the tape. Cut it using my sewing thread. Scissors. Alright, you gotta be really careful here. This is the first splice that's important, so I'm gonna use my razor blade to help guide the tape on there. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'll do it on this side. Hopefully you can see it a little better. I don't know if you can see that. Oh well. It wasn't the world's perfect tape job, but I think that'll do. Alright, let's see what it sounds like. I really should be taking my time a little more carefully because I simply cannot afford to make a mistake. I can't do these mixdowns again. For me to reset up my board and remix down everything, it's just, I don't even want to think about it. I'm getting nausea. So I really should be doing this a little more carefully, but whatever. I'm a little bit of a rush. I'm supposed to go hang out with friends after this, so apparently that's more important. Okay, so let's do this here. Let's take this off for a second. I'm gonna wrap this up. All right, let's try it out. perfect. Perfect for my needs. Now let's get to the second part. So we're going to want to put this aside for a second. This is now part 1 with the transition on there. Now we need to find the beginning of part 2. And finding the beginning of part 2 is going to be a little more difficult, you know, because since I want it to be a hard cut, you know, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do it yet. Well, let's just take it by ear and see what happens. Let's find the beginning of the song first of all. And I really hope you're able to hear everything that I'm hearing. I have it hooked up to the camera. It's a stereo source. I have it mixed down to mono just so it could connect to the camera. Hopefully it sounds alright. This is actually the first stereo mix I've done in probably about 3 years. Tim basically put a gun to my head and made me do it. Alright, so ideally, I want it to be a millisecond before that first note hits. And if you listen closely, I don't know if you could hear it, you could actually hear, what is it called? Print through. You could hear the print through of the guitar note. Let's try to listen again. Listen right before it comes, the first note. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but anyway. So, I'm going to do that trick I did before. I'm going to take this off. Alright, so there's the note right there. Right there. So I'm going to cut it right there. I hope that's a good spot. Right here. Let's just double check it. When I see that blue mark that I'm making with the China marker past that head, hopefully I don't hear any noise, and then as soon as it passes it, I want to hear that guitar note. Remember, I'm playing this in half speed, so it's going by half as slow. I think that's going to work. I think that's going to work. I think it's going to do it, baby. Let's just do it. I'm getting excited. Let's just do it. Stop asking so many questions, right? Stop acting so nervous. Just do it. Alright, so remember, this is going to be a 90-degree cut. And I am really nervous right now, I'm going to be honest with you. As I was saying, I can't redo these mixdowns. I just don't have the time to do it, you know? That's kind of the problem of being a home recordist. Alright. So now this is just extra tape. We'll splice that on the end of the tape at the end just to have it. Put that on the side. So now we have part 1 in the transition here. Oh, my heart is beating. I'm getting nervous. But really I shouldn't be. I think we're going to be perfectly fine here. Get out my sewing scissors, my scissors. My grandma's scissors. I don't know what I'm saying. This is like nervous talk. I should have probably just turned off my microphone for this whole video. Alright. I'm going to try to do it again for you on the camera. Despite my life depending on this splice. Let's see. I didn't fully press down. I just want to visually inspect. I don't think it's going to get much better than that, kids. Pressing it down hard. Alright. Let's load this puppy back up. We're going to rewind. Hear the whole thing. Let's listen to that again. Oh, yeah, baby. That is what I'm talking about. I'm getting excited. You see this? This is my excited dance. My excited dance. All right. Now we need to just simply, we're just going to take out the empty space between part 2 and 3, and we're done here. Can you believe it? We're almost done. I'm going to meet my friends on time, I think. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to be late. That's okay. Alright, so let's find the end of part 2 and make the splice. Skip ahead. Alright, this is the end, part 2. Probably right there. Good enough. Let me just mark that. We're going to check that again. Yep, that'll work. I just saw it go past. That's going to be fine for my purposes. And this time we're going to do a 45-degree cut. You know, it's a fade in to a fade out, or a fade out rather to a fade in. So, you know, a 45-degree cut will do fine. We want it to be as seamless as possible. Okay, so now this is the part we want. We're going to put this on the side here. We're going to take this empty part of reel, or empty, you know, tape here. Well, not empty, but useless. Not useless. What am I saying here? I can't fucking speak. All right, we're just going to make this splice here. All right, let's fast forward to beginning of part 3. The intro to this part is just a bunch of sound effects from my Foley records that I mixed together. It's supposed to be like a beach scene. Alright, so let's find the beginning of that. Keep forgetting this doesn't have an edit function. I keep trying to turn the reels manually. I'm going to put this in half speed, see what we find. Right before we hear that, hopefully you could hear that. It's very quiet. Right there, like it just comes on. I'm going to back it up just a bit. I'm going to test that spot. Put this in high speed. Yeah, I think that'll do fine. Now, with this type of editing, you know, you don't have to be super precise. When you're doing multi-track editing with multiple takes, you know, you have 16 tracks and you want, you know, you're taking a chorus from take 6 and putting it on the verse of take 4, you know, you have to be a lot more crucial with your timing. You know, that's when the editing function comes into play and you could rock it back and forth. But for this editing that I'm doing here, you know, I'm able to get away with a lot. Alright, so now this is the discarded piece right here. This we're going to wind up splicing at the end of the tape for later use, even though it's not great to record onto a section of tapes that are spliced, but when it's a garage studio, we do what we could do. Alright, alright. Last splice here. Hopefully you guys are starting to understand what's going on here. Picking up what I'm putting down. You know what I'm saying, kid? Alright. I'm probably going to edit out 95% of the stuff I'm saying. Moment of truth here. Last splice. Remember to always fold your tape over so you could get it next time. You wind up saving a lot of tape that way because you don't keep screwing it up. Splice done. Let's listen to it. So, I was kind of afraid that was going to happen. You could really hear the noise floor difference at that splice point. That is what I was afraid of. Which, this is what I was saying before. You know, whenever you're doing something like this and you want cohesiveness, you should be tracking all on the same day. You should be mixing all on the same day. You should be doing the same effects. You know, everything should be as similar as possible. This way, when you do edits like this, you know, the noise floor of your spring reverb is going to be consistent. You know, in this case, you could hear the noise floor of my spring reverb in part 2. You know, it's almost disappears for the beginning of part 3, because actually I'm remembering now when I did the mixdown for part 3, I have the spring reverb muted. And I turned it on later on in the song. So, like, this is just... I'm going to have to utilize my noise gate when I do the final mixdown for this. And, you know, that'll help, you know, get rid of that splice point, you know, because it'll be muted. So, let's listen to the whole thing in a row now, and let's make our conclusions from that. I should probably ask for Tim's permission, but... that guy. Let's listen.
Begin, Muslims!